Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be doing another video over here. This time it's going to be a little different. We're going to be ranking the NFL teams, but it's not going to be from 1 to 32. So as you can see here, there's an S, A, B, C, and D. S is Super Bowl contenders. A is going to be Super Bowl hopefuls. B is wild card / playoff team. C is you're pretty much in the hunt or maybe the third team in your division. And then D is a top 10 pick. So it's not, I mean, there might be a couple Super Bowl contenders. It's not going to be limited to a few. So let's just go ahead and break down some teams here. Let's start with Buffalo. So Buffalo, I'm putting them top 10 pick. I personally believe they're one of the worst teams in the league currently. Yeah, I mean, they have Josh Allen, but he didn't have a great year last year. It was okay. They still have LaShawn McCoy, who is aging. Wide receivers, nothing special. I mean, yeah, they're really just not that great of a team. Their offensive line isn't great either. So they're in a pretty tough spot because I feel like they're going to be in that continuous cycle of maybe like 5 to 6 wins, but they're never going to really have that number 1 overall pick, I don't believe. So they're in a pretty tough spot. Then I guess let's go ahead and stay in that division. And if you don't think Buffalo's the worst, I definitely think Miami is a close second. They make a trade for Josh Rosen, which, I mean, I kind of understand. They give up a second-round pick for him, which is kind of just means, you know, Arizona just lost out on a first-round pick. They traded for a second. They've been talking, though, they are looking for that Tua next year. So I thought that's what their plans were, but then they traded for Josh Rosen. But, I mean, yeah, they got a couple receivers like Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills. But besides that, their offensive line, they have a nice left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, but besides that, they're not really a great offensive line. Their running game, they got Kenyon Drake. I mean, I don't know. He's not one of the elite guys. Maybe he'll come out next year, but he just seems like an average running back to me. Defensively, I do like the move, them going after Christian Wilkins. That's actually a nice move. And I forgot to mention, actually, Buffalo, they got a nice player in Ed Oliver there as well, so they made some good moves. I just don't think it's enough to really put them over the top. And let's be honest here, they're in the same division as the Patriots, so they're going to have a rough time making the playoffs in the first place. Let's move on to a Super Bowl contender, most likely. We'll stick with my team, Kansas City. I know that Tyreek Hill situation, nobody really knows what's going to go on. I personally believe he's going to get hit with probably like a year suspension. I still don't know if Kansas City's going to release him or not, but they kind of addressed it in the draft. They went after McCole Hardman. Don't get me wrong, he's no Tyreek Hill, but he has 4.3 speed and he can straight up fly. I feel like they're going to use him a little bit how they did Tyreek Hill the first year. He's not going to get all of his snaps at receiver. He's going to line up in the backfield, probably see a lot of screen passes from them, but they still have a great roster. They got Travis Kelce. They still got Sammy Watkins, who I think can still be a number 1 receiver. They got a nice running back later in the draft that I think might be good for them. They still do have Damian Williams, who came on pretty hot last year, and of course Patrick Mahomes, the reigning MVP. And I'm pretty surprised how they rebuilt their defense just in 1 year. They switched from a 4-3, finally fired Bob Sutton, which I'm really happy about. So, yeah, they've really remade that defense. They traded for Frank Clark, Emmanuel Ogbah. They're going to be moving Chris Jones inside, and they have Derek Nottie. So I really think that could be a nasty defensive line that they created. They got the Honey Badger. They traded for Darren Lee, which is great value. I mean, they only had to give up a 6th-round pick, and he was picked in the 1st round. I don't know about that move for the Jets, but the Chiefs, I think, got a steal right there. So, yeah, I'm thinking the Chiefs are definitely Super Bowl contenders. Let's go ahead and move on to Arizona here. I think they're a B team. They go after Kyler Murray, who was definitely the best quarterback in the draft for sure. He's working with his old his old college coach, which should definitely get things rolling for him, but they still have needs at roster. I mean, they have wide receiver needs. They do have Larry Fitzgerald, but he's getting up there in age. He's kind of more of a slot guy now. They do need some receivers. Their offensive line's kind of in shambles. I'm a little worried for Kyler Murray. They might just be throwing him into the fire there because their offensive line is definitely in need of some talent. Defensively, they still have Chandler Jones. They did lose a couple players. Patrick Peterson got hit with that suspension, and he's still in the trade rumors, so I don't know what's really going to go on there. But they do need some pieces for sure, but I still think they could be a wild card / playoff team next year just because of Kyler Murray. Let's go ahead and move to Cleveland here. I think Cleveland's going to be a Super Bowl hopeful. I think people are kind of jumping on the Cleveland bandwagon a little bit too early. I know the roster is stacked, but you got to see that roster for 1 year together. I mean, you really do. You can't just say they're going to make the Super Bowl without really seeing them play. But I really do think they also do have one of the most talented teams if all does come together. I mean, they got OBJ, Jarvis. They're both their best friends, I believe, so that's going to get things rolling there. They got a defense, Myles Garrett. They got Olivier Vernon now. I mean, they're just adding pieces to this defense that really was nasty. I mean, they went after Greedy, and they already had Denzel Ward. They're making some nice moves up there. John Dorsey is doing a great job there in Cleveland, coming from Kansas City, so I really like the way they're looking. They're going to have Kareem Hunt at the middle of the year, and if Baker Mayfield can play good and they got good coaching, I really think the sky is the limit for them. So there might be a new contender in the AFC with Cleveland next year. Let's go ahead and move on to one of my second favorite teams. You guys know the Chiefs are my number one, but one of my other favorite teams are Carolina. Carolina seems to have these streaks where they're kind of crap for 1 year, then they have a breakout year. The big story is going to be, can Cam Newton stay healthy? Because Cam Newton was having his best year yet last year, but then he got that nasty shoulder injury when I believe he was hit by TJ Watt. Carolina hasn't done a great job of protecting Cam Newton. He really hasn't, and that's been a tough one because I feel like they should have a Super Bowl by now. I know Cam Newton was in one. I feel like he should have one. That team's really talented. I mean, they got Luke Kuechly, who I personally believe is the best linebacker in the game. Cam Newton's good. Christian McCaffrey's putting on some serious muscle. If you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead and look up McCaffrey picture, and it should come up. He's looking like a beast. He's putting on some weight. They got DJ Moore, who I think can be a number one receiver. And when you look at that division, Carolina was one of the only teams that didn't have an elite receiver for a long time. Because you had New Orleans, they had Michael Thomas. You had Atlanta, Julio Jones. Tampa, now they had Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. So Carolina, I finally feel like has that number one receiver in DJ Moore. So I'm curious to see how they can break out. They tried to address edge after Julius Peppers retired. So I'm a little concerned about maybe their defensive line, but we'll see if they play up to the standards. Cornerbacks, they do have Dante Jackson, who was in conversations of Defensive Rookie of the Year last year, I do believe. He's a pretty good corner for sure. He's definitely a nice corner. I think they have a nice year next year. They kind of addressed offensive line going after Greg Little for Cam Newton's left side, and I feel like if Cam Newton plays smarter, doesn't try to run it as much, kind of develops that pocket passer mentality, they're going to have a decent year, and it'll be better for his longevity as a whole. Let's go ahead and do the Redskins here. I'm going to put the Redskins in the hunt / third in the division just because they're in the NFC. The NFC's way tougher than the AFC in my opinion, and they're in a real tough division. That division is always a dogfight with Philadelphia, Dallas, and New York. It's a dogfight. They go after Dwayne Haskins, who I think has great value. They got a steal there with Dwayne Haskins. I really like that pick for him. That's a nice pick. They get their quarterback and can possibly learn from Alex Smith. Who knows if he'll be back. I think he's going to be the starter next year for sure, but yeah, I think Redskins finally got their quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, who slipped pretty far down, which is surprising. He slipped clear down to 15, so yeah, that's definitely a fall for him. The roster as a whole, though, is pretty good. I mean, they have had injury problems. They've been one of the teams that have been hit with injuries hard. I mean, they've really been hit with injuries. Their defense usually gets massacred with injuries towards the end of the year. I like their team, though. They got Matthew Ioannidis, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They're a nasty inside defensively. They got a nasty D-line. I kind of feel like they'd be a better 4-3 team. They're still sticking with that 3-4, but the 4-3 I definitely feel like would suit them a lot more. They do need some defensive back concerns. I mean, they signed Landon Collins, but corners, Josh Norman's starting to regress a little bit, so they do need to address that. Let's go ahead and move on with Tennessee. Tennessee's, again, they're one of those talented teams who I think can be in the playoffs. They normally finish like 10-6, and I feel like that could be what they finish this year. 10-6, maybe 9-7. They're going to be wild card, trying to get into that spot. I mean, the huge concern is going to be, is Marcus Mariota, can he stay healthy? Because he's had real injury concerns. I mean, pretty bad. They did pick up Ryan Tannehill, though, who's a nice backup. They do have Derrick Henry, who I wish they would run more. They got Deion Lewis, and they use him in a lot of the packages. I want to see Derrick Henry get the full load. You know what I'm saying? I know he's not like a third down back, but they need to get him some more attempts. I definitely think a Heisman Trophy winning running back like that needs to get more attempts. That's just my thoughts, but their defense is still decent. They got Jarrell Casey. They got one of the best safeties in the league, actually. Dory Jackson, I think, is going to improve next year. Let's go ahead and move on with Seattle. I think Seattle, they're in a tough position. I think a lot of teams I'm going to be putting in this B category because teams are pretty good. Let's be honest. They've gotten better over the years, but Seattle, I think, is going to be in this wild card / playoff team. They've lost a lot of pieces. I mean, a ton. They still have a little bit of offensive line issues for sure. I mean, I know they ran the ball well last year, but they still need to protect Wilson a little bit better. They lost Doug Baldwin, which is a huge loss. That connection with him and Russell Wilson is going to be hard to replace. I like the pick they went with Metcalf. We'll see what he can do there, but yeah, that's going to have to be their number one receiver, and I guess they have Tyler Lockett, who I do like as a speedster as well. So they're going to have two nice speed receivers in Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So defensively, though, they kind of lost some players. Frank Clark went to Kansas City, so they're going to have some rebuilding to do. Cam Chancellor, I'm pretty sure, is retired. Earl Thomas has gone to Baltimore. So I feel like they're going to have some rebuilding to do, and next year might be a 9-7, maybe 10-6 team. We'll see. Russell Wilson got paid, so we'll see if he plays well. Let's go with Tampa. They're going to definitely, I would say, be a top 10 pick. They still got Jameis Winston at quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be the answer. They picked him up for that fifth-year option. I don't know. If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong, but he really hasn't done much yet. He needs to make the playoffs to really, get a contract. And I think next year is going to be the year where, well, it definitely is. They have him on his fifth-year contract. So if he doesn't play well next year, definitely feel like he's going to be moving on somewhere, and he might even be a backup. I don't even know if he's going to start somewhere else, but they do have Mike Evans and Vita Vea, who's coming into his second year, so we'll see what they can do. I just don't think that they did enough, this offseason to really be a contender. What's the guy's name? They drafted a linebacker. They drafted Devin White. Yeah, he's going to definitely be a leader for him, maybe even have that Ray Lewis presence on the field, but they did lose Quan Alexander, who he should be filling in for. But still, they do have holes, a lot of holes. So I think they're going to be a top 10 pick. Let's go ahead and do another Super Bowl contender here. Let's go ahead and roll with the Patriots. I mean, they're the Patriots. They're in one of the easier divisions, but their division definitely did get a little more stacked with talent, but I still think they're going to win the division easily. I mean, they got Tom Brady. They do have receiver problems, though. I mean, they have Edelman, and that's kind of it. They lost Gronk, so I'm curious to see how they're going to address that because they don't really have any big-name receivers anymore after Gronk retired. There's been talks of Gronk maybe coming back at mid-season, but I don't know. If he's retired, they're going to have to find a new target there. They still do have James White and Sony Michel, who is a very nice running back. I would say if Tom Brady wasn't the MVP, Sony Michel definitely was the MVP of that team last year. He ran roughshod over some teams towards the end of the year, and yeah, that's a nasty pick for the Patriots. They got him late in the first round as well, so I like them. Definitely going to be up there in the Super Bowl talk. Let's go with the Raiders now. They're added some stuff to their squad here. I still am going to put them as in a hunt team, maybe third in the division. First, you got to think they're in the AFC West, so you're going to have to compete with Chiefs, Chargers, Denver, and the Raiders are going to be there. They did add AB, which I do like. They kind of stole him, to be honest. They only gave up like a third and a fifth-round pick for him. Derek Carr is really the reason why I'm putting him in the C category and their defense. This is the year, a prove-it year for Derek Carr. If he doesn't have a good year, and he really performs bad, I really think they're going to move on with him. I know they gave him a contract not too long ago, but if they cut him next year, it's only going to be like a $5 million cap hit. So it's not going to be a huge loss in dead money if they cut him. This is definitely going to be that year for him. They're surrounding him with talent. Tyrell Williams coming over from the Chargers, AB now. They lost Jared Cook, but he's got receivers. I like the pick that got at running back. Josh Jacobs, yeah. The number 4 pick I don't really agree with, going with Clinton Farrell. Definitely don't agree with that. I feel like they should have went with Ed Oliver. They definitely had inside concerns at the defensive tackle spot. That would have really helped them out. Don't really like the pick there, but other than that, they did pick well, going with Jonathan Abram, who I think is going to be a nice safety, and as well as Josh Jacobs. I really like his skill set. If you guys haven't seen yet, I'm doing a running back career mode with Josh Jacobs, so make sure you check that out. But yeah, I feel like they're going to be in the hunt team, maybe 7-9, 8-8ish team. I definitely feel like that's where they'll be. Let's go with Pittsburgh now. This video is going on longer than I anticipated, so let's kind of get through this a little bit. Pittsburgh, I'm going to put them in a B category as well. They're going to be in that wild card / playoff team. They did lose a lot of pieces like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but I feel like Big Ben's going to be coming back for one of those years, trying to prove that he didn't need Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but we'll see what he can do. They re-signed him to like a 2-year extension, I believe. He's still got Juju. He's still got James Conner. Decent O-line, nice tight end in McDonald there. And their defense has improved. They went after a linebacker, the other white linebacker. What was his name? They traded up for him, which is pretty rare for Pittsburgh. They don't really trade up that much. They went after, Devin Bush, who was the other linebacker. And I definitely feel like he's going to try to be the leader of this team. After that tough to see injury with Ryan Shazier, I think he's going to try to fill in that role. He's definitely a nice, speedy linebacker for him and should give him some defensive help there. So, yeah, they're going to be in the hunt, I do believe, or a wild card / playoff team. Let's go ahead and go with the Jets. I know the Jets have a lot of talent, but I feel like they need a year or two to really get there. The Jets, I like their talent. They got Le'Veon Bell. Even though the talks around Adam Gase saying he doesn't want Le'Veon Bell and CJ Mosley, well, he didn't want to sign them. I don't understand. Kind of causing problems there, but they did add some nice players in CJ Mosley, Le'Veon Bell. They got Sam Darnold. They still have Robbie Anderson, who I really like as a receiver. They got Leonard Williams. They have some real nice players up there in New York. And I feel like they should finish maybe 7-9, 8-8ish like they usually do. But I feel like next year they might have their breakout year. Sam Darnold's going to get a full year here to try and develop. So, yeah, I'm putting them in the C category. Let's go ahead and move on with the Saints. Saints, definitely, they're going to be Super Bowl contenders, I do believe. It's been tough for the Saints. They've had a rough 2 years after losing to the Minneapolis Miracle for that catch with Stephon Diggs. Then you got last year where they just got straight up robbed in the playoffs. I feel like New Orleans is one of those teams, like, nobody hates them, really. They're just kind of that team. Once your team gets knocked out, you kind of root for them. At least that is how it is for me. But, yeah, they've had it rough. Drew Brees, I hope he can finally maybe get a ring before he retires, but I feel like next year might be his last year. He's starting to lose a little bit of arm strength, and they're having to rely on kind of checking it down to Alvin Kamara a lot more than he usually would, because, you know, he'd be bombing it deep here or there, but definitely starting to check it down a little bit more. But, I mean, you can do that when you have Alvin Kamara. They still got a stacked roster. They got Thomas. They got now Jared Cook, who's another weapon for Drew Brees. They're also going to have Alvin Kamara. They got Cameron Jordan on defense, Marshawn Lattimore. They got a real nice team on both sides of the ball. So they're definitely going to be a Super Bowl contender, I do believe. Let's go ahead and move on with the Rams. I think they're going to be another Super Bowl contender, although I do think they're going to regress a little bit. I still think they're going to be up there in Super Bowl talks. Actually, you know what? Man, I'm kind of debating on whether putting the Rams in Super Bowl hopefuls or Super Bowl contenders here. To be honest, I'm going to go with Super Bowl hopefuls. I feel like they're going to hit a bit of regression, especially because that division got a lot tougher with now Arizona having a quarterback, and the 49ers, I think, are going to have a breakout year next year. So I'm going to put them in Super Bowl hopefuls. I think they're going to maybe finish 11-5, 12-4-ish. Definitely feel like they're going to have a bit of that regression. I don't know how serious this Todd Gurley injury is. He didn't play really at all in the Super Bowl. I think he got like 2 carries. But I'm a little concerned about that. See how he comes back next year, if he's banged up at all, or if he starts week 1. But that definitely could be a problem. But they still do have Brandon Cooks, Jared Goff. Jared Goff kind of choked in the Super Bowl. I mean, they only scored 3 points. I know you could say that could be for Todd Gurley not being in the game, but still Jared Goff did not play that great, but they still do have a nice defense with Aaron Donald. They do have Marcus Peters still, Aqib Talib. They still got some nice players on that defense side, so I'm putting them as a Super Bowl hopeful. Let's go ahead and move on with Detroit here. I'm going to say they're going to be in a top 10 pick. I feel like they had a lot of nice moves in the offseason. I just don't trust Matthew Stafford. I really don't. I don't think he's going to be the quarterback that leads him to the playoffs. I just don't. I mean, he's had years to do it, and he just hasn't done it yet. I know they have some Kerryon Johnson, who was having a very nice year last year until he got injured, which was pretty tough, but I feel like they have a running back now. They got a decent offensive line. They signed Trey Flowers to a monster contract coming over from the Patriots, so he might add some talent there on the defensive side. Definitely feel like he was a little bit overpaid, but they did need a little bit defensive help after losing Ezekiel Ansah and such. So, yeah, I'm putting them as a top 10 pick. Let's go ahead and move on with Atlanta. I'm going to put Atlanta up here in Super Bowl hopefuls, which might be a little crazy after they didn't really have a successful season last year. But they got hit with the injury bug hard. They lost Deion Jones. They lost Keanu Neal week 1. They had some tough losses, and maybe this red zone threat with Julio Jones is going to be fixed next year. But for whatever reason, Matt Ryan is struggling to find Julio Jones in the red zone, which is a little odd. I think that gets fixed next year. I think it's almost reminiscent of that one season they had when they made the Super Bowl. But I don't think it's going to be that good, but I think it's going to be up there. Matt Ryan's going to have a breakout year. They got Calvin Ridley, who's nasty, to pair with Julio Jones. They got a nice team. And they still have Devontae Freeman, so I really like their team as a whole. Their defense is good as well. They got Desmond Trufant at corner, Deion Jones, one of the better linebackers in the league, Keanu Neal, like I said. They got a nice team. They got a nice team for sure. Let's go ahead and move on with San Francisco. I was going to put San Francisco as Super Bowl hopefuls, but they kind of got to earn that a little bit. I know Jimmy G went down with a tough ACL tear last year, but was it ACL and MCL? I'm pretty sure it was. I know it was ACL for sure, but they're definitely, I think, going to be a nice improved team. They're going to have Jimmy Garoppolo healthy, who I think is going to be, I think he's a top 10 quarterback once he's healthy for sure. I just want to see how he plays for a full season, because that was going to be interesting for sure last year if he would have stayed healthy. We'll see what they can do, though. They have a nice defense. They went after Nick Bosa, added more talent to the defensive line. I think I seen a stat where this was like the 3rd or 4th year they went after a defensive lineman. So now they're going to have Solomon Thomas, DeForest Buckner, and Nick Bosa coming after you from that 4-3 defense. It's pretty nasty. It's definitely pretty nasty. They got a very nice defensive line going there, and they'll just get after you. So I really like what they're doing over there in San Francisco. Let's go ahead and move on with Baltimore here. What do I want to do with Baltimore? Oh, this is a tough one, because they made the playoffs last year. Dang. I'm either thinking about Super Bowl hopefuls or wild card playoff team. Let's go with Super Bowl hopefuls. I think Baltimore can get up there. Adding the addition of Earl Thomas to defense was huge after losing C.J. Mosley. I'm curious to see how they replace Terrell Suggs and C.J. Mosley. So we'll see what they can do there. But we do know they're going to have a nice, rangy free safety who can really go from sideline to sideline in Earl Thomas. He's a very nice playmaker. Wide receivers, they're still going to have Crabtree, and they went after a receiver. Who was that? I don't know why his name is slipping my mind here. Let's see, Baltimore. Yeah, Marquise Brown. He can straight up fly. He does have kind of size concerns. He's about 180. Yeah, I'm definitely a little concerned about his size. If a corner presses up against him, I'm curious to see how he can, counter that. But I think he's going to be a nice receiver for Lamar Jackson. And we'll see how that running game gets rolling up there on the read option with Lamar. Yeah, I definitely feel like they're going to be a team next year. Lamar Jackson's going to have learned from his first year and I think have another nice year. Let's go ahead and go with the Chargers. I know I have a lot of teams up here as Super Bowl hopefuls, but these teams up here are stacked. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be like a straight 1-32 teams. I'm just putting the most talented teams, that have a decent roster. And I don't really know what they're going to finish. I'm just doing roster talent-wise what I think there are. So the Chargers I'm putting as Super Bowl hopefuls. They have one of the most balanced rosters in the league. They got a lot of good defensive pieces. They got Casey Hayward at corner. They got Joey Bosa. They got Melvin Ingram. They got a lot of good pieces. They still have Derwin James at safety. Wide receivers, Keenan Allen. They still got Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon at running back. Offensive line starting to get a little bit better. And that was a huge loss in Hunter Henry. They lost him early. I think they lost him in the preseason, actually. Tore his ACL, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, he's a pretty good tight end. He's definitely one of the top tight ends in the league. I think Kelsey's number one. And after now Gronk's gone, I think for that number 2 spot, you probably got Ertz up in there. But he's up there. He's definitely a young one, too. So that's pretty impressive. So they're definitely going to be a Super Bowl hopeful, I do believe. Let's go ahead and move on with Dallas here. I'm going to put them as a wild card / playoff team just because, like I said, you can get 4 or 5 losses just from the division real easy that they're playing in. They're playing in that NFC East, so I feel like they got a nice team. They got Vainter Esch. They got Jalen Smith. They got Sean Lee, who should be playing with them as well. Their defense is really good. I mean, they got a real nice defense that'll get after you. Their defensive line is pretty good as well. I really like them. Their wide receivers are coming together now. Dak Prescott's going to be kind of in that prove-it year. I know they said they're going to re-sign him, but I feel like he's going to play well. He's got Amari Cooper now. He's going to have a year under his belt to get that connection rolling. They're going to have Randall Cobb, who's a very nice slot guy. So I really like them. For sure. Yeah, Dallas is going to be a nice team. Then you have Jason Witten coming out of retirement. You're going to have Frederick coming back. Their offensive line, I think, is personally the best in the league. So they could easily move up from wild card to just Super Bowl contenders just like that. I'm just putting them in B just because of the division. And I think Philadelphia is the best out of that division. So I'm going to put Philadelphia up here as a Super Bowl contender. They're going to have Carson Wentz, who has had a little bit of injury concerns for sure. But I feel like he's going to have another good year. He's been improving every time he's played. Even though he didn't play the whole year last year, his completion rate was the best it's been. So I think they're going to have a nice year next year. And, I mean, they still have Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. They got a good offensive line. They went after a running back who I think is going to be a steal in the draft. Defensively, they still have a nasty defense. They got Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. They got a real good defensive line. They also were hit bad with the injury bug last year. It feels like their whole defense was injured in the defensive backs. I mean, they had it rough last year. Let's go ahead and move on with Jacksonville here. I think Jacksonville is going to be in the hunt. I know they went after Nick Foles. I just don't know about that move. I mean, someone had to go after him. I just don't know if he's going to lead them to the playoffs. They still do have a nice defense, though, in Jalen Ramsey. A very nice cornerback duo with Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye. Their offensive line is still pretty decent. Finally got rid of Blake Bortles. Still do have some wide receiver concerns. They do have D.D. Westbrook. But, and they have Leonard Fournette. So I guess we'll see. But I just feel like that division's super competitive in the AFC South now. So it's going to be kind of tough to come out on top there. So I feel like they're going to be in the hunt. Possibly make it 9-7, 8-8-ish. Let's go ahead and move on with the Colts. So I think the Colts are Super Bowl hopefuls. I know they kind of got handled in the playoffs last year with Kansas City, but they won a playoff game. They got a really nice roster. They got Andrew Luck. They still have T.Y. Hilton. They had some very nice offensive line picks in last year's draft. I really like the way they've built this roster. Then you're also going to have Marlon Mack at running back. They got a really nice team here. They got a nice defense in Darius Leonard, who was one of the nastiest rookies last year coming out. He was really good. And their defense was greatly improved, which I was surprised. Granted, a lot of the teams they were playing weren't that great last year in terms of offensive production. So I think this year they might have a little bit tougher of a time. I still think they're going to be a Super Bowl hopeful and could be right up in that conversation. Let's go ahead and move on with Minnesota here. I'm going to put Minnesota... Oh, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with the B category because I think... I'll show you why. Minnesota, Kirk Cousins, I don't really trust him. Last year he kind of showed why. He didn't really get a huge contract in Washington. He has huge fumble concerns. For sure, those are pretty big. I mean, he played well. He made some nice passes last year. They do have some nice receivers in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. I'm not too sure what's going to go on with Kyle Rudolph. He might get traded before the year starts, but they still have some nice receivers. Dalvin Cook, hopefully he can stay healthy and we can see what he can do. They still have a nice defense in Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter, one of the better young players there is right there in Danielle Hunter. And they still have Xavier Rhodes. I think this year he might come back out and show why he's one of the most elite cornerbacks in the league, because he has struggled over the past few years for sure. But they do have a nice roster. They got Harrison Smith. They got Anthony Barr coming back. They just got a nice overall roster here. So I feel like they could definitely be a playoff team. But we're going to go with Green Bay here. I think Green Bay is a Super Bowl contender. And I know Aaron Rodgers has had injury concerns as well, but if he can, I'm basing this off staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, that team is going to be a tough one. Because they've been just loading that defense down. They go after Josh Jackson. They have, I don't know why that name slipped my mind. Yair Alexander, he really played well last year. I knew he was going to be good in man coverage, but I was surprised at just how sticky he was in man coverage. I mean, when he's on somebody in man coverage, it's like he's literally inches off of him. He's very good. I think he's definitely going to help out that defense a lot. I think Green Bay finally has got their elite cornerback since Charles Woodson was there and they won their last Super Bowl. They're going to be a very good team, I do believe. Very nice. They've been adding defensive pieces like Preston Smith. They went after a safety as well. Who was that? They went after he was coming over from Chicago, Adrian Amos. Yeah, he's a very nice safety that they got there. Wide receivers, they're going to have Devontae Adams. They still got a little offensive line concern. They do have one of the best, actually I would say the best left tackle in David Bakhtiari, if he stays healthy. Running back, I think Aaron Jones is going to have a breakout year for him. I really feel like they're going to be a Super Bowl contender team next year for sure. I think they're going to be probably like a 13-3, maybe 12-4-ish team. I feel like they're going to be a very nice team in the NFC. Man, this video's already went on for 30 minutes. All right, let's finish this up here. Got 5 more teams. Let's go with New York. I think they're going to be a top 10 pick. I know they like the pick of Daniel Jones, but I really don't. They passed on Dwayne Haskins, which I thought was a huge mistake. And if they weren't going to go after a quarterback, if they were going to go after Daniel Jones, I think they would have been better off even going defensively, maybe going after Ed Oliver. He was still available, I believe. Actually, no, he was taken, wasn't he? They picked 4th. So yeah, even going after a defensive tackle like Christian Wilkins, I think would have been a better overall pick than Daniel Jones. I don't get it. I know he's kind of friends with the Manning, I believe. Eli Manning, he knows them at least. So Eli Manning was probably like, yeah, draft this guy so I can play a little bit longer. But yeah, I don't like that pick at all. I definitely feel like that was a waste of a very high overall pick for him. Then who else did they take? They went after Dexter Lawrence, who is a nice player. Definitely a very nice defensive tackle. This class was very nasty for defensive tackles. It was really good. So I feel like they're going to have a nice defensive tackle there. So I guess they didn't go after defensive tackle because they went after one a little later. But I don't know. I just don't like that pick of Daniel Jones at all. They did trade away Odell as well, so I think they're going to be in that top 10 pick conversation for sure. Yeah, I mean, they have Sterling Shepard, but they don't have really anything too impressive anymore. They definitely have one of the, not the best rosters in the league. Let's go ahead and move on with Houston here. I think Houston's going to be in the hunt, mainly because I think they're in a tough division. Like I said, the Colts are going to be above them, I think. I know they have a nice defense in J.J. Watt, Davian Clowney, merciless. But they are losing. They lost the Honey Badger as well, so they kind of do have some safety concerns there. Wide receivers, though, they have one of the best in the league in DeAndre Hopkins. A quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who played good last year. I still think they could possibly make the playoffs. It's just going to be a tough one. That division is really tough for them. Let's go ahead and move on with Denver here. I think Denver is going to be a top 10 pick. I like the pick of Drew Lock. I just don't like the signing of Joe Flacco. All things point to him starting next year and Drew Lock sitting a year. So I feel like when Drew Lock starts, it's kind of going to be a problem a little bit, but I feel like it might actually be better for him to learn from Joe Flacco. I don't know if there's much to learn because Joe Flacco isn't the best of quarterbacks, but still he can sit a year, maybe have a Patrick Mahomes kind of sit behind him. Not saying he's going to have the same year Mahomes had when he starts, but definitely think it will be good for him to sit a little bit and learn. Their defense is pretty good, though. Still have Von Miller. They need to get rolling, though. Von Miller's getting older. They got to get rolling. They got Bradley Chubb. They need to get better on offense so they can really be a contender because too many years they put a lot of pressure on their defense to really carry them. And I think their offense just needs to play better. So I think Drew Lock might be their quarterback, but now they kind of have a little bit of wide receiver concerns. They got the running back, though, in Phillip Lindsay, and he was a very good player for him. He's undrafted, so they didn't even have to use a draft pick on him. So that's a pretty good pick there by Denver. Let's go ahead and move on with Cincinnati. They didn't go after quarterback. Yeah, it's tough. Andy Dalton, definitely don't think he's the answer there for him. They got A.J. Green, who I think might be on the trading block because Cincinnati is not really in the conversation right now for the playoffs. And definitely not in the conversation for Super Bowl contender. So probably try to get rid of A.J. Green. Maybe try to get a pick for him. Yeah, they got a tough roster. They might actually have one of the worst rosters in the league. I mean, they have Joe Mixon, a running back, but it's pretty tough. Now let's go ahead and move on with Chicago. The last team here, we're going to put them in the B category. I think they're going to be a playoff team, wild card / playoff team. I know I got a lot of teams here in the playoffs, and not all these teams are going to make it, but this is just what I think their talent level is. So with Chicago, they're going to have Tariq Cohen now as the number 1 running back after losing Jordan Howard, which I don't really understand why they traded him away, because I really like that 1-2 punch of Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, but I guess they wanted to give Tariq Cohen a lot more snaps. I mean, he's very elusive. You can definitely see Matt Nagy making some of the same moves like when he was over in Kansas City. Kind of Tariq Cohen's that kind of gadget player that Kansas City had with Tyreek Hill. So I like what they're doing over there in Chicago. Trubisky, I don't know if I trust him yet in the playoffs. I know he had a decent season. I guess we'll have to see what he does next year. Wide receivers, they got Allen Robinson, one of the best receivers in the league. Trey Burton at tight end. They got a decent O-line. Defensively, they're nasty. One of the top defensive units in the league. I think they were the top defensive unit in just turnovers last year. They're pretty good. They got some players. They got Kyle Fuller. They got Akeem Hicks, Mack. I mean, they got some straight savages on defense. So that's going to do it here. I know this video was a bit long, running on about 40 minutes here, but let me know if you want to see any more videos like this, like quarterback ranking videos, running back ranking videos, anything like that. And let me know if you guys agreed or disagreed with any of my picks that I did. I know some of you guys probably will disagree with some of them, but this is just my opinion on it. So I hope you guys did enjoy this, and if you did, please hit that sub button. That would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.